Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by AgCarolina Farm Credit. Well, I thought a good way to start this video is to take a look at how the month of November has been treating us so far. And across the top, I've got three separate panels that we're going to talk about in terms of precipitation. On the bottom, it's the temperature pattern. Now, what we've noticed overall is that the flow of the jet stream has wanted to do this. Hence, this really cold air kind of tucked away into the middle part of the country. Now, every time we have the jet stream set up such that there's a big ridge out west like this with a deep plunging trough over the eastern part of the country, it tends to be quite active in this area in terms of precipitation, and we have seen that. Look here over the last 17 days in terms of total accumulated precipitation. A big section of the country where we've had between 6 and, in some places, over 10 inches of rainfall, and that has certainly impacted the Carolinas. Now, the middle figure up there shows you the number of days since the beginning of November that have had at least a tenth of an inch of rainfall recorded, and we can see that parts of the Carolinas, well, more than half of the days so far have had rainfall reported on them. And that's why a large section of the eastern third of the country is at well over 200% of normal on precipitation. Now, why start with this is because this is the pattern we've been more or less stuck in, and we're going to diagnose where we are going from here. First, a short-term forecast. This is going to start us off looking early in the morning in the day on Monday, and we're going to be watching some widely scattered showers moving through the eastern parts of the Carolinas, while this other system moves through this part here of the Ohio River Valley, possibly bringing a cold front over toward the southeast here toward the Carolinas throughout the day on Monday into Tuesday. And let's watch it together. As we animate this forward, there we go. This is early in the morning on Monday, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Look at the showers moving through the Carolinas there, widely spread. But by the time we get into Monday, middle of the day and afternoon, it's going to be the system that will be off to our west. We're going to watch to possibly bring in another chance at precipitation late in the day on Monday into early Tuesday morning. But if anything, it's widely scattered at best. So that means that after we get this first system out on Monday, things relatively calm down throughout the day on Tuesday, just some widely scattered showers, such that by the time we get into that all-important travel day on Wednesday, things look to clear out pretty well. Now, meanwhile, let me take you across the country. Got some very good news for California, Oregon, Washington. Onshore flow finally bringing in some relief here to the incredible fires that we've been seeing going on out west. But getting us back over here to the eastern part of the country, watch what's going to happen by the time we get into Thursday morning. Big area of higher atmospheric pressure settles into the northeast, and the flow around it is like this. Now, while that returns warm air to the middle part of the country, this dominant area of higher atmospheric pressure does clear out the skies here of the Carolinas, but also brings in some colder air, and especially colder air here in the northeast. So that is how things are going to be getting toward the middle and into this week. Now, it's beyond that we really got to talk about what the pattern's going to do. So just like when we watch the stock market, we pay attention to these indexes like the Dow Jones Industrial Index, or we also talk about the S&P 500. Well, in atmospheric sciences, we pay attention to other indexes like the Pacific North American pattern or the Arctic oscillation. These are two patterns that give us an idea about what the weather is going to look like over the longer term. So here we go. When the Pacific North American pattern behaves like this, where it goes positive, that has major implications for North Carolina weather. And when the Arctic oscillation gets negative and stays negative like this, that also will impact our weather here throughout the end of the month of November. So let's see what these patterns mean. Historically, what we're looking at in the top map is the correlation between the Pacific North American pattern and temperatures. Generally, when the Pacific North American pattern goes positive, which it is going to be doing, it's warm here and cool in this region. What about the Arctic oscillation? Now remember, this is a correlation pattern, which means when the Arctic oscillation goes positive, it tends to be warm here. But the Arctic oscillation is not doing that. It is going toward its negative phase, which means we expect to see the opposite of what the color pattern shows you, which means a cooler pattern setting up. Now, let's see what this means if we step even above that into the base of the stratosphere. You see, there is a large ridge moving north of Scandinavia, and it is going to be pushing like this, thus forcing the polar vortex to weaken and elongate just like that. That tends to allow a ridge out west and a deep plunging trough over the east as the polar vortex weakens. That means a lot of cooler air is going to be spilling into the eastern half of the country at least over the next 15 days and probably quite a bit into the month of December as well. So let's talk about it. The pattern is everything. We start here first. So What do we have? Trough here in the Gulf of Alaska getting down over toward California. This ridge that you see moving into the northern part there of the Northwest into British Columbia, it will be sliding east with time, but you will see quite often, more often than not, the reestablishment of a trough over the eastern part of the country. So let's get rid of these drawings and watch this pattern unfold. Here we go. Let's get you through the start of the week into Wednesday and now into Thursday. So for Thanksgiving, trough coming in out west, very thankful for that. That's going to bring in precipitation we need in California. Ridge builds in the middle part of the country. Well, where I'm from, I'm thankful for that because it is certainly going to allow us a brief warm-up. But we have this deeper trough here that's kind of setting up in the northeast, very, very, very cold temperatures. And for the Carolinas, it's going to be certainly a cooler start to the week. But this ridge will be pushing toward the east by the time we get to the end of the week. But with it, some very unsettled weather. Let me show what I'm talking about here. As I move you forward, Thursday, middle of the day, getting into Friday, well, this is where things get interesting. Brief warm-up toward the end of the week. And I'll tell you, any warm-ups that we do have, they're going to be short-lived. But see this right here? That trough will be swinging through the lower Mississippi River Valley, initiating the development toward the end of the week of an extratropical cyclone. That's a low-pressure system that will go racing up the East Coast. Then, see what's going on up here in the Pacific Northwest? That trough digs in, giving us our second system that we're going to have to watch kind of get going in the middle part of the country toward the weekend. So now you watch it with me. Ready? Remember, these troughs bringing in the unsettled weather. This is Friday in the early morning. Look at this. Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday morning, first trough swings in. That brings our next big chance of precipitation for the Carolinas. So quieter week, but then that's the system we're going to have to watch toward next weekend. Look at the deeper trough digging into the Four Corners, into parts of Texas and Oklahoma. This is now Sunday at noon, next Sunday at noon, right there. That one comes swinging through by the time we get into Monday of Tuesday of next week. And what does our pattern do? It does this. That is the positive phase of the Pacific North American pattern. And you see the higher heights we have going on right here, that ridging, that's indicative of the negative phase of the Arctic Oscillation. You see, we're just seeing the pattern play out exactly as the indices told us. And even as I stretch this on out, look, I'm now all the way out into November 30th, December 1st, we see the atmosphere wants to hang on to that. And so that means cooler risks in place for the southeast, active storm track there in the southeast. And let's now take a look at it, what it means in terms of temperatures. So playing this out here, we're looking at temperature anomalies. Here you go. By the time we get into Tuesday into Wednesday, the colder air finally sinks through there. Now watch, that colder air sets up shop and stays in place in the northeast, like we talked about, stretching down there along the coastal Carolinas. And by the time we get into Thursday, the warmth rebuilds in the middle part of the country. And toward the weekend, look, spreads over there finally by the time we get into Saturday to the Carolinas. So you got a cold week until next weekend. But look at this. Look at the middle part of the country. See the colder air coming back in? That's the active pattern taking hold. So you got a cool week, a warm weekend next weekend, but the active pattern gets going and it is moving your way, Carolinas. And I'm telling you, you've got a couple of big systems to be watching this weekend and early next week. Let's take a look at them here. European model forecast here. Here's the first system. So let me just step you back there. Early Monday morning showers. So we're talking about early Monday morning on the 19th. Then things overall relatively calm throughout this week. See, you don't see a lot of precipitation throughout much of this week. But look at this. By the time I get you into Friday night, Saturday morning, there's that system. Look at it coming through right through you next weekend. So if you're out shopping next weekend, we're going to have to watch that system right in through there. And that's system number one. Let me get you now to Sunday. Here we are, Sunday, middle of the day. Here's Monday, middle of the day into Tuesday. There's system number two. That's the active pattern I'm talking about. So if I put your precipitation all together, here's looking at your next 5 days. Much of this is early Monday morning. After that, a relatively dry pattern. But look at what happens when I put all of the next 10 days together. Those two systems, one coming next Friday and another one coming early next week, keep things wet again for the Carolinas. Now, with talk of this pattern, let's just stretch this out at the end of this forecast video to talk longer term. I want to take you here to the long-range forecast put together by the IRI multi-model probability forecast group here based out of University of Columbia. And what do we see? We see that for December, January, February, precipitation forecast tends to keep the southeast and up the east coast near average, possibly even wetter than average. We also see this same area probably favoring a flow pattern like this, talking about near average to cooler than average temperatures for this winter. So I think we're going to be in a wash, rinse, repeat pattern for quite some time here. And any warm-ups that do come through, I don't see them being long-lived, especially in the next 15 days or so. That's why we give you these weather forecast videos once a week to keep you up to date on how this all is going to play out in the coming seasons. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at AgCarolina, thank you for watching. Hope you look forward to our next update coming out next week. Thank you.